It ain't necessarily so. Creating a counterargument for the Common Core regions and for life. Hello again, everybody. I'm Mr. Fleck, and I want to thank you for joining this presentation about counterarguments. A counterargument is an argument or a set of reasons put forward to oppose an idea or a theory developed in another argument. In other words, it's a response to somebody else's argument. But how do we go about stomping on somebody else's use of reason and logic? Well, to begin with, you can attack an argument with which you disagree in a number of different ways. You see, a good argument is like a castle. It's something that should actually be strong enough to stand on its own. But even when medieval castles were really strong, some clever soldiers always found a way to get around them, under them, or through them. So you might want to look at an opposing argument's words, the stuff that's written. Is the meaning clear? Is there only one meaning for each word? What you're looking to do is find ambiguity and uncertainty, in other words, what we would call wiggle room. Then, you can show that there are contradictory definitions. You see, not everybody, when they think of a definition of the word, thinks of it exactly in the same way. For example, let's say your school has banned book bags. And they say you can't carry books in a book bag. Well, what about if the next day you came in with a pocketbook and stuffed your books in there? And they said, nope, not good, can't have that either. So the next day you bring yourself a brown paper sack and you stick your books in there. And they say, can't do it. Well, this might force you to ask the question, how exactly do we define book bag? And if tomorrow I brought my books in a golf bag, would you tell me I couldn't have that either? Next, look at our old friends Aristotle's appeals. Yep, once again, look at their use of logos, ethos, and pathos. What we're looking to do is find holes in our opponent's use of those appeals. Remember, logic has to be clear. But if somebody's logic is obviously twisted, it's our job to make sure that that gets straightened out. Now, how might we do that? One thing people do is assume. Ice cream, for example. We assume everybody loves it, and in most cases, we're probably right. However, what about the people who are lactose intolerant? Feeding them ice cream, well, that might result in a terrible sickness for them. So we can't assume that everybody enjoys ice cream. You see, when we assume, we make an ass out of you and me. And that's something we can point out in a counterargument. Once again, even the strongest of castles can be attacked. And that's something we have to keep in mind. You might wonder what's coming next. Well, lucky for you, I'm here to tell you. We'll be looking at logical fallacies. What are those, you might ask? Well, these are things that look like logic. And that might make us happy. But in reality, they actually aren't. And if we use them, we can lose arguments ourselves. But that's a story for another day. Until then, I'm Mr. Fleck, and I thank you very much for joining us on this presentation.